Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick, Taylor Riggs, Caroline Hyde back in the saddle, counting you down to the closing bell. Here to help take us beyond the bell, it's our global simulcast team. Tim Stenovec in, Carol Massar out, the horse whisperer, Katie Greifeld in her place. Together, bringing together our Bloomberg Television, radio, and YouTube audiences worldwide. And Tim, it's an interesting day here. I mean, relatively subdued trading. Volume isn't light, but is not necessarily the massive sell-off that maybe you would think there is with all the red on the screen.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting that you say that because I think about the crucial moments of the day. I think of 2 o'clock when we saw the beige book summary from the Federal Reserve cross here. And interestingly enough, even though we got some headlines that weren't so great, that the Delta variant as a reason for the deceleration, economic growth downshifting slightly to a moderate pace. There's continued concern about supply disruptions. We didn't actually see the equity markets react in that much of a negative way, Katie.
Yeah, it was interesting because if you look cross-asset, for example, you saw bonds rally again. Yields had been drifting higher heading into today. You also saw the dollar catch a bit of a bid. Not so much on the equity front, though. I mean, on the sector level, utilities managed to rally, but big tech, for example, the haven of choice of late, it's falling.
Yeah, and some of the key stocks among them. I mean, how can the market rally when you have Apple off by, well, dragging the S&P 500 off by almost 3 points, when you've got Facebook down, PayPal down, Nvidia down? You can't really fight that.
You know what you can't fight is, I think, David Sowerby, the guest that, well, yes, thank you, Romaine. We can't fight the Fed. We also can't fight comments that we got from David Sowerby of Ancora Advisors, really saying that stocks continue to be some of the best inflationary hedges out there as we think about TINA and FOMO, Romaine.
Yeah, TINA and FOMO. You mentioned all those stocks that were down. Caroline, to the upside, you did get Amazon, MasterCard, but that's not going to be enough here to push this market into the green. Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 72 points or 0.2%. S&P 500 down about 6 points or 0.1%, 45.14 and change right now as we wait for those numbers to settle. The NASDAQ Composite going to finish the day down roughly 88 points or 0.6%. The big underperformer of the day, once again here, though, of course, continues to be the Russell 2000. Take a look at the Russell here because it's going to finish the day down by about 1.2% here. A lot of this is it's pretty broad-based. You're talking about more than 1,400 stocks in this index are lower here on the day. It was the discretionary names. There was a lot of the tech names, and including a lot of those biotech names, really not doing much here to help that cyclical trade.
Yeah, not many winners on a day like today, especially when you see big tech taking a turn like this. One thing that I thought of today was, and I've been thinking a lot about today, is the JOLTS numbers that we got earlier in the day, really showing this imbalance, Taylor, between supply and demand when it comes to job openings and also people looking for work, because we do have millions of Americans on the sidelines who are not getting off those sidelines and going back to work, at least as of that August jobs report. At the same time, a record number of jobs that are open right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though, at least not affecting some of the corporations and some of the company stocks that we're seeing as of yet. And you really see that when we take a look, as we always do for our radio audience, at the sector winners and the sector losers. And of course, with some of the winners, this really does appear to be sort of a bond proxy, Katie. With bond yields falling, it's utilities, it's food and beverage, it's household products, it's food and retail and real estate, up 0.5% to almost 1.8% on the day. And on the bottom, unfortunately, sort of that reflationary trade and a cyclical trade that is a rotation out of that. It's semiconductors, materials, energies. Those are some of the worst performers on the day, off more than 1%, Katie.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a down day. I did find some gainers, though. One of them is General Mills. It reported at the Barclays Consumer Staples Conference, updated its forecasts. It now sees fiscal 2022 net sales, operating profit, and diluted EPS at the higher ends of its previous ranges. And a big reason why is due to its recent pet treats acquisition. People love their pets. Traders love the stock, up about 4.6%. Kraft Heinz, too, also gaining. It reaffirmed its full-year outlook, still expects to deliver 2021 EBITDA ahead of $6.1 billion. Also said that it's implementing necessary pricing actions to deal with cost inflation. That helped the stock finish about 3.9% higher today. And finally, Vinco Ventures, its latest meme stock darling. Traders have been all over the stock on platforms like StockTwits. Surged again today, closing about 5.8% higher. Reminder that the retail trader Tim is alive and well as we await GameStop earnings.
Well, 5% for one of the meme stocks.
General Mills up 4.5%. You don't see that every day.
No, you certainly don't.
Look at that camera work. Oh.
Also, GameStop is reporting earnings after the bell. Speaking of meme stocks, I'm keeping an eye on some decliners today. Coinbase Global, one of those down more than 3.2%. It's the U.S.'s biggest cryptocurrency exchange. It's lower after the company's CEO, Brian Armstrong, blasted the SEC for, quote, really sketchy behavior after the company received a warning that regulators plan to sue. This is in regard to the company's new lending product. It's called Lend, and at issue is whether or not DeFi lending pools qualify, guys, as securities. Pulte Group, also among the worst performers in the S&P 500 today, down more than 6%.
Can we just point out?
Yeah.
Like we keep calling it a lending product. They didn't actually roll out that product.
No, it's not rolled out yet.
And they basically trying to block it before it even starts, which is relatively unusual for the SEC.
That's a really good point. And the company did say that it would delay the release of it until October, but it had announced it earlier this year to try to get support for it, and said that people have been expressing interest in it.
All right, I'm done interrupting.
That's okay. You can interrupt anytime you want, Romaine.
Oh, great.
Pulte Group, among the worst performers in the S&P 500, finishing the day down more than 6%. It's a supply chain story. The company cut its guidance for the year, said it would sell fewer homes than it previously led due to shortages of building products. Caroline, remember in July, it deliberately restricted home sales in the second quarter due to a shortage of workers and materials. Also keeping an eye on GameStop, down more than just 1/10 of 1%. It was I know it was a close one. It almost finished in the green, but I'm still calling that a decliner. We are awaiting those earnings. I did.
You've invited Romaine in to interrupt you at any given opportunity, and he will live up to that. Now, if you were going to rue the day you said, come on in and interrupt at any given moment. Meanwhile, though, we move away from GameStop, which comes out with its earnings any moment now, to a story of red across your screen because it is a story of dollar strength today. Search for a haven bid. We saw the euro off by 0.2%, the Swiss franc by more than 0.25%. But even as we had dollar strength, let's go across the commodities market, which was a sea of green, not often what you see when the dollar is higher. But we've got, of course, supply chain issues. You mentioned when it comes to house builders, Tim. I'm looking at nat gas, of course, natural gas up 7%, worries about the repercussions of Ida. Interesting news, of course, coming from Europe in terms of Nord Stream, the pipeline there. But WTI crude pushing up 1.5%, still some areas offline in terms of the production of oil. We're seeing oil push higher. Still, aluminium up at a 13-year high. You've got the likes of natural gas at a 7-year high. Talk about inflationary pressures. Lastly, I look at the sovereign bond story from a global perspective. Completely mixed picture. What did it say in terms of the U.S.? Taylor.
Well, it certainly said a similar story, Caroline, where bonds are catching a bid and yields sort of erase all the gains that they had made yesterday to now falling on the day. Yields are down pretty much 4 basis points across the curve to a 134 and a 195 on 10s and 30s. And Tim, this really kicks us off. I think you made a good point earlier about the JOLTS data, maybe from the economic side, saying, well, we're seeing maybe some signs of slowing, and that folds into some of the equity strategists saying, okay, maybe we have gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves and we downgrade from an overweight.
All right, everyone, of course, waiting on those GameStop earnings here. They are crossing the wire right now. Net sales in the quarter here. This is their second quarter, coming in at about $1.18 billion. That's slightly above what the street was looking for, average of about $1.12 billion. Not really sure exactly what the adjusted loss is, but the street was looking for a loss on the quarter here. We'll have to dig a little bit deeper to get those numbers here. And of course, Tim, I think what a lot of people really want to know beyond the numbers here is really what Ryan Cohen's plan is for this company. And I think that disappointed the last quarter, where they didn't feel like they got enough clarity here about how he's going to take GameStop to whatever the next level is for this game.
Yeah, certainly listening for any detail from Ryan Cohen, but also Matt Furlong, who came most recently from Amazon. This is all part of the company's turnaround and whether or not it can actually deliver on that promise to actually transition itself from a bricks and mortar company into one that competes against Amazon in terms of e-commerce when it comes to gaming. This will be the first earnings call led by Matt Furlong and the duo of executives who came from Amazon. But we do have to remember, GameStop's already up 920% so far this year, guys. And on average, since 2019, shares have moved lower by 18% the day after earnings. So I expect a little bit of volatility.
$15 billion market cap. They are missing, when it comes to an adjusted loss per share, 76 cents. That's worse than the estimated loss per share of 67 cents. But if they beat in sales, I mean, it would be the second time that we'd see that since the beginning of 2019. So this is a company that always underperforms on earnings day, but it's not the only company coming out with earnings right now.
Nope, I hate to say it. Romaine keeps buying those Lululemon tights, and they are boosting the
They're expensive,
Romaine.
but they're actually pretty comfortable.
They're pretty comfortable.
You know, if they weren't like $300,
a bit like
they would be a little bit, you know.
Let's get you the numbers first, and then we'll hear about Romaine's tights. Second quarter revenue for Lululemon coming in at $1.5 billion, outperforming estimates of $1.3. USC, an improvement, huge improvement on the bottom line. Second quarter adjusted EPS of $1.65 versus $1. $1.19. And frankly, all you need to know is you get an improvement in forward guidance on the third quarter and really here the full year earnings and revenue, Katie.
Yeah, and you can see Lululemon just flying after hours. The stock is now up about 7% and climbing in after hours trading. So clearly traders like the stock and feel good about maybe Romaine buying more tights going forward.
These things are popular, Katie, as you know. And of course, they were popular, I guess, with women
She's
for a while.
she's the marathon runner
and
here, I
then they
think.
went after men and, and I don't know. I mean, but they seem like they can do no wrong, Katie.
I agree with you.
You're a marathon runner too, right?
No, I'm no Taylor. I'm sticking to the 5Ks.
5Ks.
Yeah.
Look, I want to hear about any commentary around supply chain disruptions. That's certainly been a theme around earnings. I want to hear about e-commerce. I want to hear about store traffic. One thing that Lululemon has done really well over the last few years, the pandemic notwithstanding, is turning their stores into experiential centers, offering yoga classes. And that really gets people into the door because the challenge before the pandemic was, hey, what can we offer people in stores that we can't offer online? And how do we get people in here talking to the sales associates and actually doing yoga in the clothes because that gets people to buy them?
Don't need to just do yoga in those clothes. I think there's a whole athleisure cult out there that largely don't do yoga, but definitely
you know what?
wear overpriced Lululemon.
I'm guilty as charged.
You're a cycler, my friend. I see you in your Lycra every day, but doing real work on a bicycle.
You know, the thing about the Lululemon menswear is I can actually wear them on days like today, and you would have no idea. The pants look like work pants. I can get away with it.
All right. I always love when we keep things on track. So Lululemon beat here. GameStop, I guess relatively in line with estimates, so that loss per share did come in a little bit wider than expected. I have one little quibble here. I didn't get a chance to interrupt you before, Tim, when you brought it up here. But you talk about the shares being up 900 plus percent, 955% or whatever it is on a year-to-date basis. I always wonder why people sort of mention that, but they don't mention the fact that it was actually up at one point about 1,700%. So it's been a pretty big drawdown from that high back then.
A lot less shorted, though.
You know, I'm a pessimist, Tim.
No, that's good. And it's a good note to end on, even though I'm an optimist, Romaine. It's going to do it for our cross-platform coverage today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place on Bloomberg Radio, YouTube, and on Bloomberg TV.